Tokyo Ravens, an anime that isn't particularly unique in itself, but adds enough twists and turns that somewhat generic story of the supernatural has an abundance of substance to it. The story of Tokyo Ravens seamlessly blends elements of the paranormal with high school life that flawlessly attributes those aspects into a relaxed and carefree plot, which still somehow manages to be mature despite its lighthearted atmosphere. This lighthearted atmosphere is skillfully constructed by its uncommon cast of characters that have a charm to them. There's an obvious lack of character development for a lot of the cast, but it's still easily forgivable. The characters bring about a feeling of pleasure and absolute delight whenever they're on the screen, and make Tokyo Ravens the marvelous spectacle that it is. Kyoukai no Kanata, Kyoto Animation's newest show that had an extremely promising premise but ended up supposedly disappointing a lot of people's high expectations. I, myself, wasn't particularly unsatisfied with it in the least, simply because I wasn't expecting it to stick to the premise consistently. The plot revolves around a group of students that appear to be normal, but are actually gifted with abnormal abilities such as immortality and the power to control blood. Admittedly, it has a lot of pacing issues, but it still regulated its more dark, mature scenes with its upbeat and cheerful scenes. By administering both of those into the story, it sadly led to major pacing issues that caused it to lose some of its potential. The changing variations between the atmosphere can undeniably be considered a massive problem, but at the same time these easygoing scenes can still be heavily enjoyable if you just understand that it was produced by Kyoto Animation, who are widely known for their pandering. Not that that's a fault. Overall, Kyoukai no Kanata's execution lacked the impact that many people expected, but still managed to be an unlikely pleasant experience. Many people dismissed Log Horizon as being a sort of online clone and didn't bother giving it a chance. I'm not trying to be insulting, but using SAO as a benchmark in the first place is rather stupid, considering it wasn't even the first or best of its genre. Log Horizon takes the generic stereotypes of game anime and drops it on the side of the road while driving down the highway at 88 miles per hour in a DeLorean, going back in time to slug the shows that failed at what it easily achieved. It isn't trying to be amazing, just good. It's avoided most of the problems that other shows of the same genre have had, and it's created a solid story with an actually interesting and non-stereotypical main character. The author clearly wanted to create more than an action-adventure story, and he has highly succeeded so far. Delving into the actual situation of being suddenly dropped in a different world, where the rules no longer apply, and exploring how people would react in said situation is actually quite refreshing and very different than the norm. Log Horizon won't win any awards, but it succeeded in what it set out to do. Be better than the last show, and look good doing it. Outbreak Company is the perfect merging of modern-day Japan with everyone's dream fantasy land that includes all mythical themes such as elves, dragons, and even a cute lolly who rules the land. I'm in. Our main character, Shinichi, is an otaku whose only useful skill is his knowledge of otaku culture. Because of this, he is recruited to travel to the fantasy land that the government is hiding from the public. Shinichi's job is to spread otaku culture through the land in an attempt to gain their trust. This plot isn't even attempting to conceal that it's otaku pandering, but as an otaku, is being pandered to really that awful? Especially when it's in the form of an immensely entertaining anime that silently snuck its way into my favorites with its radiating magnificence. Outbreak Company really did just whisk my heart away. Yes, Infinite Stratos 2. I'm not allowed to have a video without talking about an ecchi show, right? Infinite Stratos is the type of show that sets a goal out for itself and accomplishes it. Although this goal is simply the plot, expecting much more than that is rather naive for someone who is knowledgeable about the show. This season of Infinite Stratos was definitely worse than the first season in almost every aspect, not saying that I didn't particularly enjoy what I expected from it, which was the plot, obviously, but it just didn't even feel like a sequel. It lacked a lot of the features that made me love the first season, but it didn't fail at what it does best though, and I'm pretty sure you all know exactly what that is. As a giant fan of the visual novel, I wanted nothing more than the anime adaptation of Little Busters to be a monumental success. Although it wasn't a failure, it still wasn't the ideal adaptation that I hoped for, and I do admit that I was hoping for way too much. I do that all the time when something that I've already read or played gets an adaptation, but still, Little Busters was fantastic. Refrain picks up from the end of the first season and ups the intensity and pacing to the exact opposite of the first season. It finally adds in what was missing from the first season, and exemplifies the characters' perspectives on the drama that's taking place. It left out a lot of things that I felt would have significantly improved the story, but it still accomplished engaging the viewer and making them experience being engulfed by the emotions that Little Busters can derive from people's minds. Despite my dissatisfaction with the adaptation, it still made me recall why Little Busters is one of my favorite franchises of all time. Kill la Kill can be best summed up as an endless thrill ride that's leading to an absolutely glorious conclusion that will knock logic right out of your mind. Although it's had some pacing issues, it's been a constant adrenaline rush that arouses you to question why you like this show as much as you do. Is it the enticing charm that all the characters deliver, or is it the unique premise of absolute ridiculousness that draws out your love? Kill la Kill created some of the best characters I've seen in recent years. Lady Satsuki and Ryoko are some of the strongest leads that I've had the pleasure of encountering. The lighthearted jab at various anime tropes also made the show feel confident in itself, and thus it unleashed limitless amounts of entertainment that never feels exhausting with how outrageous it can truly be. White Album 2 is an anime that is made amazing by the realistic characters whose interactions illustrate a beautiful story of romance that hasn't been seen before. When I went into White Album 2, I had no idea what to expect, and it blew me away with the amount of emotion it made me feel. The story itself is rather straightforward, a simple story that focuses on a love triangle. The amount of realism that the story itself offers is as real as it gets though. It makes you picture yourself in the dramatic situations and dilemmas that the characters are facing, thus you can't help but become attached to the characters because they feel so real. The depiction of human emotions that was written in such a complex manner led to my undying admiration of White Album 2 and left me with the void that plagues the ending of such great anime. White Album 2 was obviously the most underrated anime of this season and deserves all forms of praise that it receives. Kuroko no Basket, one of the most engaging sports anime that is the definition of the word entertaining. Even people who aren't fans of basketball or sports in general can easily enjoy the greatness that Kuroko no Basket is. It doesn't focus on the realism of basketball and blends abilities in that make it much more entertaining than a normal basketball game. The characters all had their own unique qualities that kept the story interesting, in the court and out of the court. The diversity between the characters fabricated situations between the characters that was effortlessly my favorite part of the show. It fluidly merged a serious and humorous tone that developed an unforgettable story of a team's trials and tribulations to become the best in Japan. While watching Nagi no Asukara, it reminded me that emotions are a very powerful thing, that without emotion, we're nothing more than empty shells. Nagi no Asukara is an anime set in a fantasy yet realistic world where people who live in the sea live side by side with those who live on the land. The main drive of Nagi no Asukara's greatness is its extremely dynamic characters, who are constantly changing and growing as the story progresses. The character development is so amazing. Every character has in-depth personalities that are all highly interesting. I became so invested in the characters that I couldn't stop myself from rewatching episodes constantly. The emotions that it evoked from me were so intense that I felt truly entranced by the story that was being expertly told. There's no doubt that Nagi no Asukara is a masterfully crafted drama anime that's written nearly to perfection and deserves the admiration of many more people. Hey guys, Glenn here, and if you want to watch any of the anime I talked about in this video, you can watch them directly at Crunchyroll. Link in the description if you want to do that. And as always, thanks for watching.